Hey guys, it's Goosebumps Completionist, and today I'm bringing you another book versus episode video. And in today's video, for the first time ever, we're going to be doing books versus episode, considering that the episode took elements from both of these books. So we're going to be looking at Deep Trouble, books versus episode. Now, for the books, I think these are around C tier books, about average to good books. The original I gave about a 3.9 out of 5. Had a very good moralistic story. Probably some of the best writing I've read in Goosebumps. It's very linear, straight to the point. Does kind of have its flaws. Feels kind of tangenty with the mermaid stuff and a couple of other issues, but it's a really good one. And then Deep Trouble 2, I gave a 3.7 out of 5. More of the middle of the road C tier, more closer to average than just flat out good, but for a creature feature book, it's fun. It has its flaws, dealing mainly with the villains and some plot convenience things, very contrived in some areas, but for the most part, pretty solid book. Both of these books are, in my opinion, overhated. Now, the episode, I gave about a 2.0, so a flat 2 out of 5, and I did this review a while ago. And I was not a fan of this episode, and I'm still not. I rewatched it for posterity reasons for this video, and I still feel about the same on it. In my opinion, it's kind of plotless. A bunch of stuff happens, and it's a weird marriage of the Deep Trouble 1 and Deep Trouble 2 books, and then some original things they add to it. Some really questionable things in it involving the effects, and yeah, it's really bizarre. But, yeah. So in these book versus episode videos, we like to run down a few things. Almost always we talk about characters. Which character, specifically talking, is better in the book or the episode? Then we like to run down the atmosphere. Which did it better? The books or the episode. Sometimes we bring up aesthetics, dealing with, smaller things that they do different, like more accent pieces. And we will be discussing aesthetics in this video, primarily dealing with how, in the plot, some things borrowed kind of differ from the other things involving fish monsters and, how the, plankton stuff, formula from Deep Trouble 2 is applied here in the episode, stuff like that. And maybe even the setting of being on a boat called the Cassandra and the island, unnamed island that they're on the episode. So yeah, we'll be looking at aesthetics. Then we'll be looking at overall plot. Which one had a better overall plot, the books or the episode? We'll be looking at the climax, which did it better. And then we're going to run over the ending, which one had a better ending, right? So it might seem like a runaway, but I think the episode might pull out some things, and we'll get to those when we get to them. So, let's start off with Billy Deep, the main protagonist in the books, and arguably the co-star of the episode. Billy, without a shred of a doubt, goes to the books. Billy's character in these books is very rich in monologue. He's probably one of the more fan-favorite protagonists, and it's for good reason. He's very open about his flaws. He's adventurous. He has some cool hobbies. He likes, he's kind of playful in spirit, but he's also heroic. He's forthright. He's courageous when he needs to be. And he takes things into his own initiative, and really, really commendable character. In the episode, his actor who plays him doesn't really portray him the best. I don't think he's written the best. I think he's kind of scaled back a little bit to give Sheena the stage in the episode, and we'll get to her in just a minute. He's mostly just fine. He doesn't feel like the same Billy. So, Billy, without a shadow of a doubt, go to the books. Right? Now, Sheena. Sheena, in the books, she's more treated like an accent character. She's not really all that important to the story, but she is. She's just there. She's more of the tag-along experiencer. I think these first two books specifically really highlight the characters of Dr. Deep and Billy more than her. But she's still a fun little supporting character for what she is. I think she's given a little more treatment, debatably, in Deep Trouble 2, only because I think you get more of her personality and her wit coming out. And she, even though she's kind of a damsel in both stories, I don't know, she's kind of even in both, but not the worst supporting character ever. But in the episode, Sheena is definitely given more of a starring role. Laura Vandervoort plays her. And I feel like Sheena is arguably the main character of the episode, and a lot of the stuff that Billy would normally go through in the books, Sheena gets to share that. So when it comes to which is better, I'm going to give Sheena to the episode. Really good. Now, Dr. Deep, the uncle to Sheena and Billy, in the books, he's a really good guy. He does some things that are kind of, ethically questionable, but he always comes around. He always does the right thing. He's a good scientist. He tries to do right when he can, and he's really into his work, but he's also into maintaining his relationship with his niece and nephew, and that's really touching to see. And he's one of the more proactive adult characters in Goosebumps that you'll find. I mean, he's in the story, in the trenches with these kids in these first 2 books. So this was great. Dr. Deep's a great adult character. In the episode, he's there too. He comes across a little more Dr. Brewer-ish than the books. He comes across more distant to his niece and nephew, and he lets his housekeeper Janet watch over them instead of him being proactive with them. So you don't really get that same connection as you do in the book with his character and Sheena and Billy. So, I mean, he's all right, but if I'm going to give the edge to anything, Dr. Deep's going to the books, for sure. Now, here's why I'm using books here to compare to the episode. We're going to be looking at, in the episode, there's a character named Dr. Ritter. Now, Dr. Ritter is a character in Deep Trouble 2. He's the main villain. In the book, Dr. Ritter is this guy who, sees that the Cassandra, there's something going on the boat. So he and his cronies hop on, their motorboat, go and, try to help the situation. And so it seems at first. And then he asks them, hey, did you see any weird things, weird animals or anything? And, of course, Billy has to open his mouth. And then he's all of a sudden flipped a switch, and now he's become the main bad of the book. As in the episode, Dr. Ritter is treated like Dr. Deep's assistant. And he's involved with this project they're working on, and when you peel back the character, you realize that he's more like Alexander from Deep Trouble 1. So, while he has the name Dr. Ritter from the character from Deep Trouble 2, he's basically just Alexander from Deep Trouble 1. And Alexander in Deep Trouble 1 was the assistant to Dr. Deep on the Cassandra, helping him do some research off the island of Elandra. And when they discovered that mermaids exist and they capture one, he double crosses Dr. Deep, and something becomes of that, and you find out there's a greed motive there. So yeah, you have 2 kind of different setups and 2 kind of different characters that are kind of blended into one here. They take a lot of the invention element from Deep Trouble 2 with Dr. Ritter, where he's involved in making the plankton formula that's prevalent in this character in the episode. But it's mostly just Alexander being reskinned into Dr. Ritter. So if we're going to compare the 2 to each other, if we're comparing which is the best Dr. Ritter, I'd probably give it to the episode. The book's Dr. Ritter wasn't really that good. He was more over the top, not really much of a threat. And the episode, for what he's given, he's a little bit better. Now, who's the better Alexander? Is it the Dr. Ritter in the episode or the Alexander in Deep Trouble 1? I'd probably deadlock them. I mean, they have pretty much the same reasons. Even though, if I give a slight edge, it'll be to the episode Dr. Ritter, only because that added element of him doing testing on humans and sending his cohorts over to an island to dispose of them was kind of dark, but I think they're more kind of even here. So, yeah, that's that. Now, the rest of the characters are pretty much exclusive to where they exist. So, like, for example, Dr. Ritter's cronies are only in Deep Trouble 2, so by default they go to the book. But if I had a preference, I would have them not exist because they're just more like buffoonish Three Ninja movie type of villains that are just kind of cringe. Not a big fan of them. The mass robber guys from Deep Trouble 1 that help out Alexander, they're only in Deep Trouble 1, so they go naturally to Deep Trouble 1, but kind of the same thing. Not really cringe, just kind of exists as backing force for Alexander and nothing else. They just are there. We'll go into the couple that owns the zoo. That's only present in the Deep Trouble 1 book. So, yeah, those characters go to this. But, by default. And I kind of like their characters. They're very cool for what they are. They introduce an element to the story about, encaging animals and wanting to make a display for a mermaid and how it makes the reader question the ethics behind that, and I think they serve a purpose in the story. So yeah, I kind of wish that some element of them existed in the episode, but woulda, coulda, shoulda. And then, I guess for episode exclusive characters, you have the housekeeper Janet, who's not present in either one of these books because in the books, the place they're on is the Cassandra, which is a ship, and in the episode they're on an island, an inhabited island, mind you, with a housekeeper and a community nearby. So Janet, having a housekeeper makes sense, kind of. But she's only in the episode, and her character's kind of weird. She's just more of a spy, trying to keep a watchful eye on the kids. But then at the end, she has kind of something involving her character with the twist ending, and she's kind of become a sideshow caretaker, which is kind of bizarre. But yeah, Janet, she's fine in the episode. And then the lab assistants that were having testing done to them were only in the episode, so they go there. I think one of their names was, Luis or something? And there was a couple other ones. The practical effects look great on them. I'm glad that they had that addition in the episode. If they couldn't do just giant fish and giant crabs and whatnot, they tried to do that, kind of, and we'll get into that in just a minute. But the fish monster, I think, was a definite improvement from the book, so I'll give the episode credit where it's due there. The lab assistant fish monsters, hybrids, were cool. So yeah, that basically wraps up characters. Now, atmosphere. I think the episode tried to have a Caribbean atmosphere. This is a show filmed in Canada. There's only so much accuracy you can have. It's a low-budget show, also keep in mind. They tried their best, but the books just were so descriptive in the setting. And especially from someone who's been in the Caribbean before, plugging yourself into the Caribbean with these books is very easy. The tropical atmosphere, you can really feel the heat when Stein describes heat in the book. You can imagine ornate and gorgeous coral reefs that Billy's exploring. It easily goes to the books here. Books went out on atmosphere, no question. The episode does try, though, and I'll give it some credit there. Now for aesthetics, we can get into pretty much plot aesthetics, and we're dealing with the episode adaptation here. It's mainly taking plot from Deep Trouble 2, right? So we're mainly going to be looking at Deep Trouble 2 for this, but dealing with the plankton formula that was in Deep Trouble 2, it's never really called anything than just the plankton. There's a growth hormone added to it, and they want to cure world hunger, and Dr. Ritter's the one behind it. As in the episode, Dr. Deep is essentially behind the plankton formula to end world hunger, and there's kind of a role reversal. And the plankton, how it operates is kind of the same. When it's given to animals, they grow big, but when it's given to humans, something else happens to them entirely. And that's kept pretty much constant, for better or for worse, just with mild tweaks. Now, the tweaks are, in the book, the plankton formula turns humans into fish. As in the episode, they're turning into some weird human-fish hybrid, which I think is scarier and a little bit more morbid. So for aesthetics on the effects of the plankton stuff, I'll give it to the episode. Now, let's talk about the setting aesthetics, the Cassandra on the open water versus the island. The island is very limiting in the episode because, they can't show, coral reefs. It's too expensive on the budget. So all these creature interactions, if they are interacting with sea creatures, come from them on the shore seeing a shark fin or finding a shark tooth. I mean, it's simple stuff like that. And they try to compensate it when they go to this other island and they get dumped there by Dr. Ritter. They try to have giant lizards and giant tarantulas, but the effects look terrible. So, I mean, it's a pretty big give or take with the episode when it comes to the setting and its limitations. The book, they're just on the open water. You get to experience, especially in Deep Trouble 2, you get to experience that creature feature type of story with actual sea monsters instead of giant lizards and crap like that. There are giant birds, but that's probably the extent of the other animals. So when it comes to, I guess, the setting, I'm going to give it to the books. I just think it's better. It bleeds into the atmosphere as well. So yeah. Now, overall plot. This is going to be a lot to take in. But in my opinion, the differences of plot are kind of like this. The episode tries to take from both here. You have Dr. Deep and a lab assistant named Dr. Ritter. Kind of like Deep Trouble 1, there's a lab assistant. But they're on an island this time, and Billy and Sheena are visiting an island where Dr. Deep lives in his research house, and he has a basement lab, and they're there researching wildlife that go around the island. And while they're there, they find a giant shark tooth on the side of the shore, and they show it to the two, doctors, and they kind of scoff at them and say, I don't know what you're talking about. Then they look at it like, well, this is weird. And they kind of allude that they don't know what they're talking about, but later on, when Billy and Sheena go into the lab, they find this beaker, and the beaker accidentally falls into a fish tank and turns a pufferfish humongous. And after that escapade, they're pretty much banned from going down into the basement lab, kind of like stay out of the basement a little bit. And the babysitter has to watch them. They kind of meander around playing cards on the island, and then they find a guy that comes, washes ashore on a boat. He said he came from another island, and something terrible's going on, and he's feeling sick. And Dr. Ritter and Dr. Deep look concerned, and they try to get him some help. And Dr. Deep gets the idea to go to the island, and Dr. Ritter agrees and takes Billy and Sheena with both of them. They head to this other island nearby. And then the whole revelation with Dr. Ritter comes to light, and he abandons them on the island. And then, of course, they go through what they go through with the giant fail CGI monsters, and they find the half-human, half-fish hybrids hiding out there. And essentially, that's how, the climax unfolds and how the ending of the story is, propped up. As in the books here, it's a bit different. If we're looking at the plot of Deep Trouble 2, Deep Trouble 2 is really, Dr. Deep is by himself. He no longer has a lab assistant. He's on the Cassandra. He's no longer off the island of Elandra from the previous book. He's just out in the middle of the ocean, and he's finding some weird plankton, and he's collecting specimens. He's noted some weird sized fish that's never been seen by mankind before. And Billy and Sheena experience, giant sharks, giant jellyfish, giant crabs, and stuff like that throughout the story. And there's more of a mystery element of what could be causing this. There's illusion that it could be this plankton. And then once these strangers come to try to help, they reveal themselves. Dr. Ritter, the leader of this group, reveals himself to be the researcher that's been, exposing this plankton stuff to the environment. And his motives are, to end world hunger. And Dr. Deep kind of scolds him about, the unknowns of what it can do to the food chain and to, humans themselves. And they, of course, get, taken hostage, and they escape captivity narrowly, get a spear gun shot at them. They get stranded in the middle of the ocean, almost, sink their boat, wash up on an island, deal with some more giant monsters, and then they get helped by some dolphins, get taken back to their boat. Find Dr. Ritter there, and then Dr. Ritter drops a bombshell about the plankton, and, the story ends. So there are some differences here. If I had a preference for overall plot, though, if we're mainly comparing Deep Trouble 2 and to the episode, because the episode's mainly taking plot from Deep Trouble 2, I would probably give the edge to, I don't know, like, I just feel like the episode's kind of plotless because there's really no dialogue. There's just a bunch of stuff happening. It doesn't really go too deep like the book does with it. I feel like the creature feature stuff was more up my alley. It was scarier. It was kind of more engaging. It was more brisk pace, fast paced. The episode does get kind of slow at times, especially in that part one. It does kind of drag. The kids do meander playing cards together, just doing nothing. It gets kind of boring in some areas. And the CGI really doesn't help some of the more quote unquote exciting parts of the plot. So I'll probably give the edge to the book by default. Yeah. So book wins out on overall plot. Now, for the climax, which one had a better climax? Well, in the episode, the climax is, they find this underground tunnel of these half human, half fish hybrids, and they're trying to do something to Dr. Deep, and Dr. Deep convinces them the truth, and then something happens to Dr. Ritter. As in the book, this is kind of similar, it kind of borrows from both. In Deep Trouble 1, the climax is, after they steal the mermaid, a bunch of other mermaids help Dr. Deep, or I guess Dr. Deep and Billy and Sheena help these mermaids try to go rescue their mermaid friend. And the boat's left rocking in the middle of the water, and Dr. Deep, Billy, and Sheena assume that the mermaids are going to take care of Alexander and his goons, and that's kind of the climax. And in Deep Trouble 2's book, the climax is obviously when they make it back to the Cassandra, the whole thing dealing with Dr. Ritter and the revelation about the plankton and what he ends up doing with the plankton to himself. That's essentially the climax there. So I've had a preference for climax because they're kind of like a melding here. The episode's just a melding of these two books. I think if we're going to compare, I think the books have better climaxes as a whole. The episode just kind of comes across, the effects of these fish hybrid monsters make it scary, but specifically for Deep Trouble 1 and Deep Trouble 2, their climaxes, I want to say they're the best ever, but I just like them more. I don't know. It feels like they were building to that point. As in the episode, it was just like, I felt like you got dumped off at that point. If we're trying to decide which is objectively scarier, I'd probably give it to the episode, but I just have to give it to the books combined if we're going to be comparing these. So, yeah, climax go to the books. And then the endings. Which one had a better ending? The episode has this ending with like a sideshow carnival twist, dealing with the, housemaid, showing the fish man and all this stuff. Who's the fish man? You have to find out. You have to go watch it. As in the books, right, Deep Trouble 1 kind of ends on a, hearty har kind of ending where, Billy kind of ties himself back to something that happened earlier in the book. And then in Deep Trouble 2, it's kind of a cliffhanger with something involving Sheena and this plankton stuff. So it's more of a cliffhanger. If I had a preference for ending, though, if we're going off the main comparison, which is Deep Trouble 2 and Deep Trouble, the episode, I probably would give the edge to overall ending to the book, because I think the book tied up some loose ends and it gave this prank element some resolution and made it all make sense. It was kind of fun the way the story wrapped up, and I kind of like the cliffhanger. You don't know what happens. It makes it kind of suspenseful. The episode is just kind of chalked up hammy. Everybody else gets a happy ending but one character, and it looks kind of hokey. Yeah. What can you do? So this might seem like a runaway. I think the episode did try valiantly. I think it did provide a better Dr. Ritter, but kind of matches the character when it's trying to be an Alexander Dr. Ritter hybrid. I think it's a better Dr. Ritter, but kind of even Alexander. I think Sheena's a better character in the episode. I think some of the aesthetics are better, dealing with the fish monsters and stuff. And give the climax some credit. I do think the climax is a bit scarier in the episode. But everything else, I think I prefer in the books. So when it comes to Deep Trouble, I'm going to say that the books are superior. And it's by a lot, I would say. Billy, you know, is just so powerful in the books. I think if the episode had a better Billy, it might be closer for my enjoyment. I might put this episode way higher than I would. But it's just not a lot there to chew on for the episode. As in the books, I think there's more to chew on. I think the morals are more there. I think they're more clear. I think there's more plot there. They're both more engaging than the episode is. And the episode just really held back by its crappy effects, some subpar scripting, some, you know, questionable acting from some participants, and general uninspiredness for the episode. It has some original things it brings that I think does inherently improve on some things, but doesn't really improve on the things that really matter. So yeah, the books are superior. Now this is a book franchise, right? Goosebumps is a book franchise. Go read Deep Trouble 1 and 2, and then go watch the 2-part episode. You might love the books and you might love the episodes, or you might like the episode and you might not like the books, or you might just feel indifferent about both. That's what Goosebumps is all about. Go try them both and see which ones you like more. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Deep Trouble. What do you guys down below think about the Deep Trouble books and the episode? Which one do you find superior? Do you think the books are better? Do you think the episode is better? I'm dying to know, and I'll see you next time.